Oh my God.
Start over.
Thank you.
I am drinking a cappuccino.
Where are we at?
We are at the Geppetto Cafe. I wanted it to happen, but it didn't happen. I did. Video. Today's video is going to talk to buyers. We're going to talk about buyer assistance programs. The conversations have to start early, and you have to understand how they work. They're very specific. Today we're going to go to the City of Bridges Land Trust here in Lawrenceville and talk to their director, Ed Nusser, about what their program is and how it will help buyers.
Here we are in Lawrenceville at the Ice House, and I'm going to do my very best to get through this video for you all without making as many errors as I've made in the first 4 takes. So we're here with something I think is very important. We're here with an interim executive director, Ed Nusser, for the City of Bridges Community Land Trust, which is a nonprofit.
Yes.
And Kristen, who you've seen in my other videos, Divine, who works with me. And we're going to talk a little bit about how important this is and how this program works. So this morning, Ed, can you tell us briefly about the idea of a land trust?
Sure. Community land trusts exist in 47 states across the country. They're 50 years old. The general idea of a land trust is to create permanently affordable housing, largely through home ownership. And the general idea behind that is, right, if you take a $800,000 Lawrenceville row home and you move it across the city, it's not worth $800,000. It's worth that because of the land it sits on. Because that land's a block from Butler Street and 3 miles from downtown and a great bike commute in. So what the land trust tries to do is say, let's separate the value of land from the equation. Let's permanently own land as a nonprofit, geographically based organization on behalf of the communities we serve, and sell homes on that land to income qualified homeowners to ensure that there is permanent access to safe, secure, affordable housing, no matter what happens in the real estate market surrounding that particular parcel.
So how many parcels do you think you've done, and how many years have you been in business doing this?
So City of Bridges Community Land Trust is a relatively new organization. We grew out of the Lawrenceville Community Land Trust. It was a program of Lawrenceville Corporation. So we have City of Bridges Community Land Trust is, depending on who's counting, about 10 months old.
Mm-hmm.
Our board met for the first time and was seated in May of 2019. As I said, we grew out of Lawrenceville Corporation's Community Land Trust program. From that outgrowth, we brought 7 completed homes into our organization's portfolio that were all sold to first-time home buyers, all under 80% of area median income.
And not to interrupt you, that 80% of...
So for this year, that changes on an annual basis, but for this year, that means an individual that earns about $40,000 a year up to a family of 4 earning about $63,000 a year.
Okay, so those are kind of the parameters people
Yeah.
need to know.
Yep. So we have those 7 completed homes. We're wrapping up construction on 6 more homes right now in central and lower Lawrenceville. 3 are being actively marketed as we speak today, and then 3 more will hit the market in late March, early April. And then beyond that, we have a pipeline of about 35 more units that we can create in the coming years in about a half dozen different communities.
And how many do you think you put out a year? How many of these homes?
So our business plan calls for creating 100 units in our first 5 years of existence. So we're going to be at about 20 by the end of this year. So we'll wrap up our first full year with about 20 in the bank. So we're right on pace.
I was going to say, you should be able to make it.
Yeah. So that's our business plan calls for 105.
Kristen, can you give us specifics about the buyer programs? I know there's several different programs.
Mm-hmm.
Are there specifics about the buyer-driven programs that you use?
Sure. So in addition to the development work that we do, we also have a program that we call our buyer-initiated program, and it's a down payment assistance grant. It provides up to $30,000 in grant funds, not a loan, grant funds to income-qualified buyers who are shopping on the market. And really the goal of that program is to help get folks across the finish line. A lot of times you're talking about, moderate income, first-time home buyers, don't have a ton of savings. They look at, down payment's a problem, or pre-qualification is 100, 110. Seeing on the market is hopefully, maybe best case scenario, 135, 140. What fills that remaining gap? And so we've launched this program to try to be the final piece of the puzzle for those kind of first-time home buyers. So again, it provides a grant up to $30,000 for individuals who want to buy a home and enter that home into the land trust. It's flexible funding, so it can be used for down payment, it can be used for closing costs, it can be used for updates and repairs to the home. So a lot of times, either you're seeing stuff that I just can't qualify for on the mortgage, or I can qualify for the mortgage, but it needs $20,000 in work because the roof's 40 years old and the HVAC is 25. So it can be used for those uses as well.
And where's that located that you can use those programs?
So that the down payment assistance program can be used anywhere in Allegheny County. It's really tailored to be available to suit buyers' needs. Our development work is based on community partnerships, but the buyer-initiated program is really about meeting individuals where they are with what they need. And so
And anywhere in Allegheny County.
anywhere in Allegheny County, yes.
Are there any other programs that are out there that are available to people that you are aware of or you work in coordination with?
So in the city of Pittsburgh, if anyone who's coming through our program and income qualifies for our work, which again is at 80%, area median, 40 to 63.
Yeah, right, this year, right?
Yeah,
Depending on
this
the
year,
year.
depending on year, depending on family size. If you're buying anywhere in the city, those individuals would also qualify for the City of Pittsburgh's Housing Opportunity Fund, which can provide up to $7,500 in down payment and closing cost assistance. So that can be stacked with our $30,000, or that can be used on any home that we develop for down payment and closing cost support. And then, depending on the lender that a home buyer is going through, the Federal Home Loan Bank's First Front Door program, which is a 3-to-1 match. So for every dollar a home buyer brings, they'll get $3 in grant support through a Federal Home Loan Bank member bank. So those are typically the smaller community banks are members of Federal Home Loan Bank. But that money typically becomes available in the middle of March and is usually spent down by the beginning of August.
It's gone pretty quickly.
So it goes pretty quickly, but depending on timing, if you're in, buying early in buying season, that's a source that could be available too.
And the qualifications for that are the same?
Same, yep.
Downside. Let's talk about a buyer. What's the downside of this program?
So, community land trusts create permanently affordable housing. And we do that by limiting the value of a home in any year in the future. Homeowners still build wealth, they still build equity, but you're not going to hit the neighborhood jackpot the way some folks have in places like Lawrenceville. If you bought in Lawrenceville in the early 2000s for $55,000, congratulations, you had great foresight, you hit the jackpot. But that also, that is that's very extractive wealth. The community came together. The community, no individual homeowner made Butler Street a thriving commercial corridor.
It was the entire community.
Entire community. No individual homeowner made the violent crime rate drop 65%. It was the entire community came together. And the CLT seeks to try to reorient folks to this idea of there is individual wealth, and you will create that by owning your home, by the value of your home growing, by paying down your mortgage. But it also recognizes this idea of communal wealth and tries to keep wealth in the communities that create it and ensure that access to place isn't predicated solely on an individual's buying power.
So you're saying there's going to be like a cap when they go to resell?
Yes, yeah, and that's in the ground lease, and that's agreed to upfront. The ground lease is signed at closing and recorded along with the deed at the county real estate office. We also require that all of our would-be home buyers meet with an attorney prior to signing that ground lease to make sure they understand that 40-page document that is in legalese is translated and they understand exactly what they're signing up for.
But you don't charge them anything for the land.
No, so the ground lease does have a monthly ground lease fee payment.
How much?
It's $20 a month.
Kind of affordable.
Yeah. So again, our goal with all of this is to ensure permanent affordability and ensure long-term success for our homeowners. And so the ground lease fee payment is really largely about keeping having a legally binding contract.
Because you have something that's...
You have to have something
Yep.
in return for that contract to be valid.
Well, I don't think you're going to get rich on that. That's
no.
not, and this is a nonprofit.
And we are
so-
we are a nonprofit, so that those fees go right back into the operating of the organization. We're a membership organization. All of our homeowners are automatically members of the organization, so they have a direct voice in governing the organization. They elect the board. A third of our board seats are reserved for homeowners. So a third of our board, a third of my bosses, are the homeowners themselves.
Okay.
Which is the way it should be. So we believe in democratic control. We believe in direct governance, and so yes, that CLT homeowner is paying a monthly ground lease fee, but they're also a member of the organization with full voting rights and the ability to sit on our board and tell me what to do.
They don't just get the opportunity to have the grant; they also get the opportunity to be involved.
Exactly. There, some home buyers, really want an affordable house, and they get the affordable house, and they're happy. Others really want to be part of the organization, and there's room for both. You're not signing up for a volunteer commitment along with an affordable home,
But you can.
But the availability is there if you want it.
Is there anything specific that you'd like to ask?
If I understand correctly, you're helping to build a future for first-time home buyers in these communities.
That's one of the things that we're trying to do. Absolutely. You look at in the context of Lawrenceville, a market that has already surpassed the majority of first-time home buyers. But in other communities that we're partnering with, in places like Sharpsburg, Etna, Millvale, Fineview, other communities that we're talking about are beginning to feel market pressure for the first time in 10, 20, 50 years in some cases. You look at those places and in guaranteeing access, especially in a place like Sharpsburg that is part of the Fox Chapel School District.
Yeah.
And you talk about creating access across the economic spectrum for that quality of public education, that's a big deal too.
Can you give us a little background on people it's worked for so far?
Sure. I think the best case is, so we finished 7 homes in 2018. They were all sold to first-time home buyers. They're all on one block in Upper Lawrenceville. Of those 7 home buyers, 4 of them were renting in the neighborhood before they bought their home. All of them were renting before because they were all first-time home buyers. But 6 of those 7 home buyers are now paying less on their mortgage payment than they were paying in rent before they bought their house. So now you're talking about moving right from a place where you're losing money on a monthly basis to a place where you're building equity, building wealth, and saving money on your housing payment, all in the same stroke.
Yeah, and we see that a lot. People who can't get that piece together to get into the home but can afford the monthly payments. So you're just kind of putting that puzzle piece in for them.
That's what we're trying to do.
I'm new to all this
Sure.
information, so I find it very interesting for buyers that I'm working with to give them opportunities for other ways to get into affordable housing.
Yeah.
And to be in communities where they would love to be in, but they can't afford to be in.
And that's that's the rationale for our existence.
What's the kind of cap on the houses that you're building, which is a specific, different program, I understand, but...
So they all have both our buyer-initiated and our developed units have the same resale formula. The resale value of the home grows roughly at the same rate as area median income, which is on average about 1.5% each year. And
Say that louder. It's about 1.5%.
It's about 1.5%. So our home values grow at about 1.5% each year. And that's tied to the growth of area median income. And the idea that our board set when they set that, and that was a board decision, not me in the office making up choices, again, going back to that direct governance and democratic control, was that if a family at 65% of area median income buys our house in 2019 or 2020, then a family in 2040 at that same income level should be able to afford this house. So that's the overarching sort of goal when we tied it to the growth in median income.
Any checking in on the houses?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So we have a full-time, so we're a staff of 5. We have one of our positions is a community engagement and stewardship coordinator, Crystal Jennings. She's fantastic. But Crystal and another colleague, Julia, they are tasked with checking in with our homeowners on at least biannual basis to update them annually on the value of their home. Julia in the past and Crystal this year will be organizing sort of homeowner get-togethers. Again, not required to be part of the community, but for folks who are buying into this idea, who are drawn to the idea of communal wealth, we find they typically also like to be a part of a community. So we create space for homeowners to get together and get to know each other. We provide refreshers on, what that ground lease says, what the value of their home is this year based on area median income.
And things they can do to improve the value of their home.
Are there restrictions on what they're allowed to do, improvements while they live there?
So the ground lease doesn't put firm restrictions on, but does require CLT approval for certain modifications, largely around things that would change the square footage or floor plan of the home, because a part of that is, if you're walling off an open space to make a third or fourth bedroom, that changes the household size that can be served by that house, which changes the affordability calculation. So those things that we don't necessarily say no to, but we need to be aware of so that we can accurately tell folks what the value of their home will be if
Sort
they
of
make
like the
those
homeowners
changes.
association. Similar.
Similar,
And it's
hopefully less intrusive.
And it's $20 a month to be in
Yeah.
this homeowners association. It's very inexpensive.
Hopefully less intrusive.
Okay.
And
I'm sure it is,
yeah.
but you still do have parameters.
We do.
That
We
they have
do.
to live by.
Owner occupancy is required. These homes are to be owner-occupied homes.
Not
to be
rentals,
they're
right,
not
right.
rental. They're not income-generating property. And so there is. Our staff does check in to make sure folks are
Living there.
Living there, and everyone annually signs an agreement saying, yes, I'm still living here.
Still.
And we haven't had a problem with any of that yet, but that's something that we do.
That's awesome. Is there anything that we haven't covered?
Well, I wanted to hit on something that you said earlier about creating access and avenues for more individuals to get into home ownership, and really at the heart of our work is balancing this idea of long-term affordability with wealth creation, of how do you still allow individuals to build wealth while limiting their equity so that affordability remains for the next person. And one of the reasons we were drawn to land trusts originally 4.5 years ago was you look at this national track record of land trusts, and like I said, they exist in 47 states, about 13,000 land trust homes across the country. Nationally, just over 70% of land trust homeowners, when they sell their CLT home, move on to buy unrestricted market rate house. They leverage the stability, they leverage the security, the savings, and the equity they create through owning a CLT home to go on and buy an unrestricted market rate home when they sell their CLT home.
It's kind of like a way to ease into the market.
Exactly.
Which gives people an opportunity to understand what they need to do.
We talk about our work a lot of times being the first rung of the ladder of property ownership. Of how do you...
For someone who has the parameters that are very difficult to move into home ownership.
Absolutely. And most of those families and households are renting, or you're losing losing money on a monthly basis. So let's transition individuals and families from that negative equity, losing money every month, into a situation where they have stability. Their housing payment isn't going to go up. They know their house is theirs. They own it. They can do with it as they please. And they can build wealth, build some equity, and stabilize and move on to...
And be prepared for a purchase.
So is there like an education piece when they're coming into this?
There is. All of our homeowners are required to go through a HUD-certified home buyer education counseling. We partner with NeighborWorks on that and other entities as well.
So maybe sometimes Kristen and I, when we're volunteering, we have some of the people
Yeah,
in
you'll-
class.
You may actually see myself or some of our staff members at one of those classes too, because we're there on occasion
It's
as
a
well.
it's a great program also, NeighborWorks. Kristen and I both volunteer and speak and help people trying to get into their first home.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This
Absolutely.
It's been really good for me. I hope it's been good for you too. This has been an awesome bit of education to really help you understand this whole thing about buying your first home. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks
I
for
appreciate
coming
it
down.
very much. All
Thanks for
right,
coming
take
down.
care. Thanks, Kristen.
All right. Best she can do.
Those two look terrible, is what she said.
Today he
She's
knows.
very mad at me.
Very mad at him.
That's why I'm in the video as my
Okay.
punishment.
Okay.